This conference will now be recorded.
Yep. Like to call the Board of Supervisors to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda. Anybody have anything we need to add to the agenda this afternoon? All right, what y'all want to do?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. As always, public comment. Public comment. Are you making a presentation today, Jim? All right, good. Anybody online? All right, we'll do public comment again at the end. Ms. Warren, talk to us about the budget calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me pull up the revised draft that we put together. We made two changes we would like to recommend for the budget calendar. The first one, and I might have to have Mr. Weekly help me with this, but one, we are recommending that we move the Davenport final presentation to the April 3rd budget work session. That gives a little bit more time now that we have capital and we're refining the capital for them to update their figures for the final presentation and report. And Mr. Weekly, do you want to mention the other?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Warren. So one of the things I learned in preparing the advertisement for the upcoming April 8th public hearing for tax rate, and that's going to be where you determine the equalized rate. The state code lays out, and they have changed. In the past, we've been allowed to hold your public hearing for your tax rates, so that can be anything from real estate to all your various rates or tax rates, as well as your budget the same night. They could be two separate public hearings, but the same night. Now they have to be separate. So what we've done is we've kept the April 22nd date as an additional date if the board determines as we go through the budget process, which April 3rd, between April 3rd and April 10th, Jennifer and Brian and myself will be working through and have a pretty good feel. On the 10th, you'll have our presentation of the budget, not the one that'll go to public hearing, but the 22nd would give you an opportunity, if you wanted to adjust rates, you would hold another public hearing to do so, as well as administrative fees, and those are your building permit fees or dog license or all the various fees. And then May 13th, I did not check with Stephanie today, but we don't have to do it today. We can do it at another date. But we recommend May 13th to be your public hearing for your budget, and you could act to approve that night. With that, there's a little note there, what you would need to do and recommend it. We talked about this even during the first draft of this calendar, is to extend the tax collection deadline. Normally, it's June 5th. I think code requires at least 2 weeks' notice before payment. Stephanie usually prefers and does a good job based on our timelines, and when she gets it out, 30 days to 45 days. So I would recommend extending that out somewhere towards the end of June, maybe that third week. But we can get that date at another time from her. Just know May 13th would move it.
Yeah, I think we had
Yeah, I
talked
thought
about
we
that.
already agreed to move it back 17 days.
don't remember, 17 days.
I thought we pushed it back because we knew that the audit was slow, the assessors were slow, and then we knew the budget was gonna be, what do we need? Do we need to have a motion to do that?
You would, and I would recommend, the 20th is that Friday or 23rd is that Monday, maybe one of those two dates,
How many
whichever you
days
see
back
fit.
is that?
From the 5th.
Yeah, all right, there you go. All right,
seventh.
so that's simpler.
The 19th would be 2 weeks extra
Yeah.
from your normal deadline. And that would be beyond 30 days from what you could adopt your budget on from May 13th. So it gives them beyond 30 days if you did the 19th. But you can pick whichever day. I would not go past the 23rd. You need to give them time to, do their collection and all the entries and things that they do.
Anybody have any issue with that? Comments? I think pushing it back is no big deal.
So the 19th?
Yeah.
All right, so if you can do it later, or if the board wants to make a vote now to extend tax deadline for real estate, be June 19th, 2025.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, there you go.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So that, if you'll go back to the calendar one more time. So that helps, and as you can see, Davenport would come back. They gave you an initial presentation, but we needed to refine some numbers, so that's just already in scheduled. It just didn't make sense to bring them back earlier in March. We needed time to prepare. Again, you'll have, Jennifer and I will be presenting on the 10th at that budget work session, a proposed budget. But do note on April the 3rd, while Davenport's at the beginning, we left that as follow-up budget discussion. So there may be things you say, hey, plus up, decrease, eliminate. There'll be plenty of opportunity. I would say the bulk of that workshop would be open for adjustments or conversations that the board want to have. Ms. Warren, did I?
That covered everything, thank you.
Anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts? All right. Budget calendar's kind of set. We'll see how it moves.
And I don't, it may be for, I would just recommend maybe also moving to adopt the updated budget calendar, because this is part of the budget book.
It's not on OneDrive yet because we have not adopted it, is that?
There is a version in the folder. It's under the agenda folder for today's meeting.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking under the budget calendar, okay.
All right, what do you think about adopting the new budget calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
No, sir, I just.
All right. No. That's what we gotta do. Simon, come up and talk to us about Skyline Cap. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, gentlemen of the board, and distinguished staff. Just want to say this is Skyline's 35th year of service in Madison County, so we're celebrating that with cupcakes later. Then we have for you on the slide on the second, to get through this quickly, our impact last year. So the impact last year for Madison County was 238 individuals received services, and then Skyline serves overall 15 counties we have clients in. So the second number you see on that slide below, a little bit smaller, that's the overall number that Skyline serving. So it's over 1,600 individuals, over 15 counties. And for Madison, that equates to 81 households that we had services in. Then if you move to the funding slide, we get funding from 45 different sources, so we try to get as much funding as we can wherever we can. The big part of that pie I'd like to point out is the program income slice. So that's fee for service. So Skyline earns about $400,000 a year now. We've been developing that over the last 10 years as an additional resource for all our communities. We have some fee for services that we do, and we also own 30 apartment units that we rent out and manage. ourselves. So that makes that pie a little more diverse, and that's what we like to see it. As you can see, Head Start's still the main part of our grant overall, with that bottom piece, and that's one of our biggest asks for you today. As Head Start, you're mandated to collect 25% of the funding for Head Start as in-kind, and the funding that we hopefully get will go towards that in-kind match, which allows us to secure that overall grant for the community. Moving on to the next slide. This is just a summary of all the different services in Madison County in particular. It gives how much we're asking for and then what the total match is that we receive overall for those services. So the two main services for us are housing and education. And so we start off with, we own 10 apartment units here in Madison, 2 over on Duplex Lane, which is 4 units, and then we just owned and renovated apartments on Main, right here on Main Street, with 6 units. We also put in 534 Main Street. We renovated into a 7 offices building for staff. We moved our housing department from Green to Madison. And we're enjoying having them over there very much. It's made communication a lot easier with us being at 532 Main Street for the last 15 years or so. We also offer housing assistance to 21 families in Madison. That's a sliding scale for all of them. That's recalculated every year, and they have to take good care of the units. If they don't, they'll lose that assistance for life. We provide housing counseling to 17 different families from I think it's 25 different topics that they receive counseling on and help with their finances, to rent, to credit, and such. We also did 2 emergency home repair projects last year. We increased that ask a little bit, the 49 number, due to costs, but we helped a handicapped person put in a sidewalk to access their homes, and another house put in windows and a accessible tub so they could stay in their homes and not be relocated. And then the big one there is the Head Start teachers. So they provide a preschool to 40 very low or low-income families. They're all typically below 130% of poverty. And we've been doing that for quite a long time now. I have a really good relationship with the schools here to provide that service. And then at no cost, we provide a family support specialist, which saw 4 families in Madison last year. These are typically very young women with infants seeking education on all the various topics that you need to learn to raise a child. A lot of these, not these ones particular in Madison, are a lot of families struggling with drug uses is what we're seeing. So we're an additional support for them. And we also just started, we got certified as a CPS provider. So we work closely with DSS. So any families that have children at threat of going into foster care, we can provide preventive parenting classes to them. So that's a nice partnership we have with Valerie down at DSS. And then finally, we provide Project Discovery, which is for middle school and high school students. That's free of charge, if you will. No match needed there. And so that's to 17 middle and high school students. I believe they just went to Shenandoah University to explore what careers are there. And they're getting ready to head to Laurel Ridge Community College here soon. And they're doing their community service event down at Autumn Care for all of those individuals down there.
How competitive is it to get into the Project Discovery Zone?
You're more than welcome to join as long as you're in middle and high. We do try to keep it for mostly at-risk students. The high school does have a secondary program through UVA that students who aren't in the lower need, if you will, area fall into, but we go on the trips together. So we just try to let everyone come in as they can. We definitely have our numbers. So the only thing that we have there is a bus space. We got to figure out the buses, but we're usually pretty good at that. All right, next slide. So this is one we're really proud of. So for those of you who don't know, the University of Virginia, next door here, Wahoo Wah, they created a class assessment to try to look at the quality of a preschool classroom. As you guys may know, you can't sit a 3-year-old down and get the same answer twice if you're going to test them. So they looked at a different way of looking at a preschool class to determine quality, and that was to come up with a tool that judges the teacher-student interactions and how educational it is within the classroom. As you may know, Head Start is now run by the Virginia Department of Education. It moved from the Department of Social Services several years ago. And so VDOE adopted the class scoring system from the University of Virginia and UVA. And now VDOE goes around and they score all your preschool classrooms across the Commonwealth. And so you have before you all the scores. So we're happy to say that both programs met high expectations for their environmental criteria within their classrooms. We were fascinated by our results overall, very happy with them to see where they lay. I'm also on the Governor's Early Childhood Commission for the state of Virginia as a representative of both Head Start and community action agencies for the state. And Head Start showed the same equal response across the entire state, which was a pretty impressive stat, honestly. When you look to the right on there, you'll see the Head Start overall cost is significant lesser than the average preschool, actually 37% lower. And so it's a really good program from that standpoint. So I was surprised to see these results, because keep in mind we have all the at-risk children in our classrooms, as we're dealing with as well, and yet they did an amazing job. But I think a lot of that's because we're able to focus solely on Head Start and been doing it for so long. And that hasn't been without, obviously, support from you guys here today with the funding to keep our staff. Next slide, please.
No, hold on. What is what is the scoring metrics on this? What does 653 mean?
Yeah, so the scoring overall goes from 0 to 700,
Yeah.
even as it moves through. So if you're in between the 5 to 700, that's considered exceeding.
Okay.
And so then if you look overall at the middle one there, you'll see overall Head Start. So that's Head Start across the Skyline Cap area. So we cover 5 counties. We scored 636. And then all the VPI classrooms over those 5 counties scored 624.
Yeah.
What's VPI?
Virginia Preschool Initiative. That's your state preschool program. So overall, everyone did excellent across the board there, is the main point on that one. It just goes to speak for the quality of the program overall. So with that, we are asking for a slight increase. So we're asking for 58, which is a 9.6 match on the total services coming in. The 13.4 is mostly due to an ask to increase the teacher salaries. The 2 teachers, one has been here 15 years, the other teacher has been here 5 years. I think she has 20-some years of teaching experience, the other teacher has 7 years of teaching experience. They are right now, they are about 7,000 below the starting teacher salary for a public school. The federal government came out with a mandate that we reach public school scale. So we would like to get them right below the bottom level of the scale is where we'd like to move them to if possible, which will hopefully continue to retain them as teachers. And if they leave, sadly, it would help recruit new teachers into those positions for these children. I've also been trying to get the state to pitch in, and so there is a lot of talk trying to get the state to put some funding into the low-income children, because again, low-income children in Virginia, if they're in Head Start, they only get federal funding, and if you're in the VPI, you only get state funding. So we're trying to do, back to that other graph, of a mixed model where all the communities come together and we meet everyone's needs. So we're trying to be as diverse as possible. And then lastly, I just wanted to do a quick shout out on that last, if you could back up one slide, please. To Carrie Banks. So just in case you guys see her, and you will, because she has 4 kids. She covers every corner of this whole county. But just want to give a shout out for Carrie. She's been with us for about 7 years now. She's had 4 kids through the program. Her and her husband are proud operators of the Triple F Farms, Faith Family and Farming. Carrie was selected as the state representative for Head Start for parents, and is on that board. And she also serves on the Skyline Cap Board as secretary and the policy council for all the parents in Head Start across the 5 counties. So if you see her, please thank her for her service. It's great to have those type of people in the community. And then finally, to thank 2 more individuals, Mr. Peter Work on the last slide, and Mr. James Jewett, who you guys both send to us as representatives on the Skyline's Board of Directors. So we appreciate them being part of our services. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I'm an employee of Skyline Cap, so I will not participate in any discussion.
Do you have questions?
I do have a comment.
Please.
It just, the time that I've been on the Skyline Cap board, what has been really impressive, aside from their overall excellent management and visionary leadership, is the fact that they really know how to run affordable housing programs. I mean, it's impressive. I know that the units that I'm familiar with, that I guess the 2 houses in Standardsville, they look like the day they were built. And how long have they been in operations? Like 2 years, 3 years?
About 3 years.
Okay, so yeah, they provide housing opportunities, but they are very strict on their rules. And it works. Maybe HUD could take some lessons from them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else has questions, comments, thoughts? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right. Come on down, Jerry. Doing well. You? Yeah, Boys and Girls Club in here yet. I can't tell if he combed his hair, it's just the sunglasses. No, well, there you go.
I've been wearing a straw hat all day. I did something to carry my hair down.
Yeah, it's part of it.
Clay, I got hair, so. hey.
Yeah, I know, I take it that way. Tell us about Parks and Rec, Jerry.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you
Lindsay.
guys for everything, all the support you've given us over the years. It really means a lot. To think about how far we've come in the last 10 or 12 years, it's kind of amazing. And it's because of the Board of Supervisors and the citizens of our community have always volunteered and supported us in the last several years. Some of the park improvements we've done this past year is just to maintain the mowing, fertilization, repairs, general maintenance, aerating, landscaping, over 120 acres of the park, E1, E2, and Waverly Owl, and the hockey rink. We've installed speed bumps this year at the park, painted sheds, storage buildings, installed a new roof at the shed, built new dugouts through H1 and 4. We have 6 of them complete and 2 of them in progress. Hope they'll be done by next week. We built a hockey rink after the fire for temporary use, built a pergola at the Oaks Festival area, maintained all athletic fields. We also prep all the game fields for all the school sports and all of our Parks and Rec sports. Everything from cross-country, football, baseball, softball, soccer, you name it. We prep all those for game use. Also, we managed a 2024 fire at the Holler Hockey Rink and cleanup and a barn collapse in January of 2025.
This year, and you're looking at our budget, we are asking for a part-time employee to be moved to full-time. Right now, our part-time employee is our administrative assistant, and she is noted in our operational budget that is paid by the county. So she's not part of our county employee compensation section on, oops, just lost it. But just to get an idea of what we're looking for, in addition to those duties in the administrative assistant packet that I think you all should have the job description. To get an idea of what we do at our office, we offer 9 youth team sports programs over 12 seasons of play. We have 3 adult programs over 7 seasons. We have 28 scheduled events during the year. Most all of them are all annual events that occur after business hours, where we require our Parks and Rec staff, volunteers, and other board members to help facilitate the events. Some of those are free events, and some of them are paid events, ranging from our Movies in the Park that are free, and then our Community Heroes Awards Gala. In addition to what we do in the office, some of the things that you won't see, other than you can see on the ground, where we're doing activities. We manage data and information for 3 different websites. It's the county website, our Tour de Madison site, and our Parks and Recreation website. We don't manage our hockey one, but do have administrative control if we need to. We are administrators on over 10 Facebook pages and an Instagram account. With our youth sports programs, all of them are run through different organizations like Babe Ruth and Little League. Flag football has something different. There's 6 different registration programs that we have to manage just for our youth sports programs to operate the way they do, and those are not all chosen by us. We have 5 different background check systems that we have to utilize for those programs. We have 247 active coaches and have to manage compliance for all of those coaches, which includes their registration, concussion training, child abuse training, and background checks that are at a minimum of every 2 years. We manage 19 summer camp staff for our summer camp program that are all paid through our program, not through operational costs. We manage 5 seasonal facility supervisors and scheduling for those, and facility scheduling. We're members of 3 different professional organizations and we maintain partnerships with several local groups and organizations. So we work with Support Hoover Ridge, we work with school activities and events, including movie nights, facility usage, Blue Ridge Governor School projects. We're very involved in those and helping students do those. We manage Beta Club volunteers for our activities and events, and we also employ several high school students during their work release programs and summer camp and summer activities.
Is it called work release?
No, maybe not work release, but what is the? No, they,
Ah, it is, all right.
it's during the school day. They have the time where they go out of school.
All right, so it is. All right, keep going.
Sorry. We also work with other outside organizations on park improvements, including Madison Day, Master Naturalists, Master Gardeners, Boy Scouts, and Girl Scouts. Those we absolutely need more than just me and a part-time staff member to manage. We are kind of a skeleton crew. We have always operated on a very, very small crew, but we are constantly growing. This year alone, we have 49 spring sports teams, and which is probably the most we have ever had in our spring sports programs. And all that scheduling, I know Lauren can attest for just how insanely busy our sports are that add to, you know, the programs we get to add here at the park. We are asking for $163,000 for our operating costs. Those are all of our operating expenses, our part-time staff, any repairs and maintenance on vehicles, fields, electricity, utilities, insurance, all of those things that are in our budget. And then for adding converting a part-time employee to a full-time employee, that would be $303,000. Our net change is just over $50,000 for the year to convert this person to a full-time staff. There were no other significant increases in our operating costs to change this one person. So we kind of kept everything else the same, and then we're just asking for this transition of a part-time staff member at 24 hours a week to full-time.
So you're adding programs. Are these programs paid by the individual sports groups? And so if you're.
All of our programs are individually run. So with our activities and events, they are not paid from our operational budget. They're either self-paid, we have sponsorships. Got all the detail there? Would you like me to go through those?
No. I just wondered how these people, do they pay into the parks to a fund or into your group?
For specifically?
So I'm just saying, is this all from the high school, middle schools, the sports
No,
programs?
these are youth sports programs.
These are youth sports programs, so do they pay a fee
Yes,
to use
they
the
pay
park?
registration
And
fees.
where does that money go?
That goes into the sports programs on their own. So all of our sports programs have their own funds.
Right.
And so they're all managed by the sports with oversight from Parks and Rec. All of the sports do pay a 15% user fee to Parks and Rec for the management of financials, scheduling, fields, updates, all of those things that we manage, registration sites, any of that stuff.
So that revenue's going up, but it's not enough to cover the added costs you're talking about.
Just last year alone, we brought in $182,000 in registration fees. $96,000 was in our youth sports, and $83,000 was in our adults sports and our parks and recreation programs and events. So that is going into a separate fund, not our operational fund. That's just to be able to continue to do our sports the way we do. So they have funds for improvements, and any of the programs and events we run are put back into the park for activities and building the playground or the outdoor recreation center.
Go ahead.
Lindsay, I'm squinting just because my eyes are poor, but also I'm trying to track some numbers. Jennifer, can you put up that other? So, Cardi, help me remember, and Lindsay as well, because I think the difference of what you have handed out versus what Jennifer has on the screen, there was an amendment, to your budget. Was it for some clerical hours or something that maybe we really didn't catch, and then we added that money in FY '25?
From what?
So, for example, Up there, total expenses under FY '25 budget final is at 455,404. Initially, I don't know where we grabbed this number, it may have been the first, the actual budget before amending. The FY '25 was 372,427, so definitely there was an adjustment somewhere in the
That
FY.
was where we had all of the grade changes from last year. So that is what we were, that budget final was what we were given in July after all of the.
The
Board of Supervisors
adjustments
made
for
the
that.
adjustments. Yeah.
It's
We do, yeah.
possible that what's on the spreadsheet needs to be updated based on, that might have been a preliminary number, so I'll get that, I'll validate that. What she has on the screen, I have already verified, so.
Thank you. Other questions? Anything else you all want to point out? With the expanded programs, you think you need more clerical is the bottom line?
Yes, and I'll say, like, we've done a lot. So if you're wondering where we are financially, I mean, we raised $177,000 in donations last year to go to that outdoor recreation center project. We've received over $21,000 in sponsorships from the community to help run our sports programs. I think it's just over $12,000 for youth sports and $8,500 for our programs and events. So we've got a lot of great community backing, a lot of people who are donating for our cause. We raised $220,000 with Support Hoover Ridge last year for the Outdoor Recreation Center. So we're still working and building, and, you know, what we ask is not nearly as what we're using and what we need. So we definitely use every bit of what we got to make our programs and events and Hoover Ridge what it is.
We've been raising money forever, it seems like. I mean, we're getting there. So it takes a little bit more time. Groundbreaking is April 7th.
Good, good.
Should be getting an invite for that.
We sent out invites on that, so we'll invite the public, anybody wants to come to that.
Hopefully you save some shovels from the barn. No, I can't tell you.
Already said something about giving us gold shovels.
No, you gotta
We got
return them
lots of-
afterwards, we can't paint them.
Mr. Chairman, while we have them here, what's your FY '26 capital request? Is there any?
Just the ADA walkway is there. We took out what we had in there before.
All right, so the request for FY '26 capital is the 25,000 for ADA?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And that's already been appropriated last year, so
So that would just.
that just rolls over.
Okay.
There's no mower or anything?
No, we've already got the.
All right, all right. Who else has questions? I have been telling everybody, we approved at the last PRA meeting, the coaches list for spring sports. It is everybody. If they're in between the ages of 30 and 60, they're coaching some sport. It is amazing.
There's 115.
It's absolutely amazing. I mean, it's everybody's name that I recognize. I mean, it speaks very well of what y'all are doing.
And each one of them have to go through 3 different tests. And you have to track all that.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is crazy.
It's great.
You'd be amazed at how many of I've got to give it to our commissioners and the work that they do to have our programs run. Like, we do a lot in the office, but we couldn't do this without our commissioners and the dedication they put into the programs, because it's almost like a full-time job. In some cases, we spend a lot of time outside of work, in the evenings, taking phone calls and emails and doing all the things after hours just to, provide what we do.
You don't find it after hours calls or anything, Lauren, right? Yeah, that's the way to be.
I invite everybody to come out to the park and look at the softball pay for the 6 of the dugouts, the fields. It looked really nice. And we're building on the final 2, and they should be done by next week. And you get a chance to go out there and look at that, because it really.
And those funds came from them working in the concession stands and getting out there and doing things for the community and fundraising. So it's not, it didn't come from us. It was definitely the work of the people in softball and baseball that are getting this done. Softball did, 6 of those. So, kudos to them for the work they do.
Other questions, comments, thoughts?
I just got one. I'm looking at the proposed budget here From the package, it says 466, 670, but on this sheet, it says 460.
That's where I've had issues, and Ms. Warren says she's gonna correct.
Oh, okay.
Go with the number.
Based
Can you
on
put
the
that back up,
appropriated
Jennifer?
amount and the shift of the funds,
The
Pat
other
post,
sheet.
engagement.
Got it.
So, Cardi,
Yeah.
she'll revise it, but what you see on the screen now should be your difference, your FY '25 and FY '26 are what we're actually tracking. So that
Okay.
spreadsheet will be updated.
Got
Those were the employee changes that, once we got
Yeah.
numbers from Tilly and got numbers from the health insurance
Mm-hmm.
rates and those things that weren't in here before, those have been updated.
Got
Let's
it.
get updated numbers, and we'll, if, hopefully they are consistent with what we have from, PRA's, presentation. And then if they're not, then we can we can ask some more questions. Anybody else got anything? Thank y'all. Mr. Crew, come on, Crew, and Steve, are you coming with Mr. Crew? Yes. Good to see you, Steve. Talk to us about OAR.
Earlier comments about hairstyles and work release is right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, that we're more aerodynamic.
That's right.
Go ahead, please.
So my name's Ross Carew. I'm the director, the executive director of OAR, and I'm here to talk about the local funding that Madison County supports OAR. The purpose of the funding is to invest local funding in the most cost-effective solutions for community safety. We use evidence-based interventions, ultimately to improve the lives of our clients and the lives of all the citizens of Madison County. We're asking for $10,644 for our local probation. For every probation diversion, Madison County saves about $4,500 in avoided jail costs. We had 64 Madison probation placements, which was an 18% increase. Our probation successful completion rate is 67%, and when we compared our reoffending rates against the national average, ours are at 26%, where the national average is at 67%. So we're about 3 times better. We also found that probation completers were 2.5 times less likely to reoffend from our population. And the way we do that is we use evidence-based techniques, supervision techniques. All clients are assessed for risk. We have specialized caseloads based on mental health, domestic violence, substance abuse. We use motivational interviewing techniques to drive behavior change. All medium and high-risk clients have individualized case plans, and we utilize behavioral cognitive interventions to change behavior. We also have a sanction and incentive matrix to reduce noncompliance. All of these are research-driven practices used to drive down reoffending. Our other request is for the criminal justice planner. The planner is the staff member to the Thomas Jefferson Area Community Criminal Justice Board. Ms. Edwards and Mr. Hoffman are board members, the Madison County board members, and the goal of this board is to support regional evidence-based strategies amongst the 9 participating jurisdictions to address cost savings and recidivism reduction. This position is solely funded through local funding, and that funding is based on population. The activities for FY24 for the planner were a whole series of analysis and reports on prison bed days, arrests, comparisons between the 2 jails, 10-year crime trend analysis, and he completes an annual report for each jurisdiction every year. Wanted to talk a little bit about some of the additional resources that OAR has. We have 2 pretrial programs, one in the Charlottesville office and one in Orange. We have the Charlottesville Albemarle it's now Recovery Court. Fluvanna Recovery Court, Orange Madison Recovery Court, Nelson County Recovery Court. We also have the Charlottesville Albemarle Therapeutic Docket. We have a reentry program, one's based in Charlottesville and one's based in Orange, and we're excited to be starting a peer navigation program. So OAR and Madison also have additional partnerships in which we don't request funding for. The pretrial program, we provide pretrial services for Madison County. We had 71 defendants. Our reentry program also served 21 county residents. And then we also have the shared Madison Orange Recovery Court. In terms of challenges, as a nonprofit, when counties or the state give cost of living raises, those kinds of things, that doesn't necessarily trickle down to nonprofits. So we're constantly struggling to keep pace with the cost of living in Central Virginia. We cover 9 jurisdictions. We have an office in Charlottesville. We have an office in Orange. We attract staff from all over Central Virginia, and just like probably Madison County suffers from, is that competing with our northern neighbors is a difficult thing. The other challenge is rural service delivery. We've had a study that showed that access to services, proximity to service, does impact success. So we're constantly trying to build out our rural service delivery. Other than that, I'll take questions other than thank you for partnering with us. We really appreciate it.
Questions for Mr. Carew?
And I
Yeah,
invite
no,
Mr.
well,
Hoffman.
he's next, yeah. Steve?
As you know, 15 months ago, y'all formed me to the Criminal Justice Board. Although you haven't seen much of it, I met with the county officials who bring in some issues that I thought that he needed to know, but not necessarily rise to the level coming to the board. My first job in my first meeting was to go down and find out what programs are being run through this office. And I found out that being at the jail for and chairman for over 20 years, I knew of some of the programs, but I wasn't really apprised of how useful they are. That's what I wanted to find out. I wanted to find out if, as far as you're concerned, are the programs adequate? Are the people who run the programs, are they adequate? Are they knowledgeable? What is the total outcome of all the money that you spend? As you realize, Madison County is a very tiny fish in a very large bowl. But having said that, it is important that the programs that they are running are very beneficial, they're helpful. If you would have asked me 30 years ago, I'd put a needle in your arm for spitting on the sidewalk, but I have come full circle in there's some people that need a second bite of the apple, sometimes a third nibble. So my recommendation is that it be funded, and particularly the planner. I've learned that the planner there in Charlottesville, I'm almost afraid to ask him any question because I get 50 or 60 pages of technical data, which means very little to me. I'd be glad to have a meeting and discuss a stack this high with you. But I'm very favorable of the whole organization and the people who are there, the benefit to the citizens of Madison County, which your money and their effort actually is beneficial. And my recommendation is that you fund them fully. Question?
All right. Well, I don't know, that's pretty good coming from Steve. That's good. That's a good sales pitch, Steve.
I must be pretty confident in our program if I let him come up
I
and
agree
talk
with you.
without
In
saying, without
every
knowing what
way, he
he's
did
gonna
great
say.
for you. I mean, good gosh. How many people have graduated from the drug court now?
There's been 3, there's currently 4 in there.
Good.
We have mid-teens census. There's always a couple that are either inpatient or in jail. I think we have 7 pending. So it's rolling. It's doing well.
Good.
You have a 5-year grant. How many years have you been doing that with that 5-year grant?
Which program?
It says 5-year grant to provide reentry services to inmates with the CBRJ.
Yes, so we are in year 4, and we also got supplemental funding from the state, from the Department of Criminal Justice Services, so we are going to be able to support moving forward
Okay, that was my
at least
question.
one staff member and then one peer support person.
Okay.
Generally, our strategy has been to try to leverage federal funding with implementation, do proof of concept, and then look for other resources. Same goes for the drug court. You know, with the opiate abatement funding, there's opportunities there, so it doesn't have to come out of local funding.
Jonathan?
I was actually going to lean
That's
to that,
the
Mr.
difference.
Carew. So, I believe your services are part of it, but I just want to verify that, making sure you're getting benefit of it. The Madison County, one of the OAA grants that they participated in was awarded, and Charlottesville is the fiscal agent, is the Expand Specialty Docket Services, the regional. I believe that flows through your services as well.
It does.
Okay.
So, the opiate abatement funding, each locality, and I'm probably gonna get this a little jumbled, but each locality gets a percentage, and there's a whole bigger pot. And we were able to go in with all of the jurisdictions that have these smaller drug courts and tap into that bigger pot in order to fund a regional specialty docket coordinator and to prop up a peer recovery support specialist program. So we're going to be able to bring in 3 peers that are going to be embedded in these courts. And that's all coming out of opiate abatement money. There were small contributions made by each county. I think it was like $5,000 for each jurisdiction as a match.
Yeah, it was a total of 388,000 awarded, and you're right about the local match. So if there are any of those additional things that catch your attention that could maybe be good use of OAA funds, we would definitely want to talk with you. We have another cooperative agreement through Encompass, different services, obviously, but we do not want that money to kind of go away. We want to make good use of it, but there are specific uses. So if there's ever anything else that you think through your services that may be a benefit of OAA, please, let's have that dialogue.
Well, and I think the Madison contribution to drug court is about $20,000. And so, we came with our handout saying, hey, we're going to try to make it so the county doesn't have to pay that. And so we're actively interested in doing that.
Okay.
Other questions from Mr. Carew or Mr. Hoffman?
So that's the difference between the application of 15,204 and the spreadsheet of 35,204 is the 20 grand.
Is that 20,000?
Abatement.
And that was an agreement that was
Sure.
made several
Okay.
years ago. Yes,
Yep.
3 years ago or something?
something like that,
Yeah,
yes.
that's right. Anything else back here, folks? Anybody else? Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Mr. Gray. Steve? All right. Animal shelter. Come on up, Annette.
How are you guys? So the biggest increase in the shelter budget will be for veterinarian services. That I am asking for a 50% increase. It was cut 30% the last budget. And as you guys know, we had to come back in front of you guys to get some money to get us through. This, in my opinion, is the most important line item just because we have to provide vet and medical care to the animals we have in our facility. We are decreasing feed and animal care supplies. Our Amazon wish list and the citizen donations help with those. Cleaning and janitorial will also be decreasing. However, there are cleaning products that must be purchased to keep up with state standards and protocols. You'll also notice that there are several line items that will not increase or decrease. The shelter budget increase would be $30,510, which is a 16.6% increase.
And I would like to note, thank you, Annette, that last budget season, the part-time line item did not reflect the second part-time person, and that was a mistake on my part. So you see a 29% change. It's really not. It was that I left it out in the beginning, so.
So does anybody remember, do you remember how much you all had to come back to us for the vet services this past year?
So it was, you recently had a supplemental of 30,000, 15 from donations, 15 from contingency. What happened in that primarily in that year, there was an adjustment. There was 2 months billing that came in later. That's no result of a net. That's just when they come to us. So when we were doing the budget, we had a few bills still stacking. And then the rates went up, which reasonably because the veterinarian has held their rates for years. So I'm not faulting them for that. So that was the reason of a drastic reduction last year was we look at our trends and actuals and being behind bills, and then the rates jump was the primary reason for that. So both Annette and Jennifer have met. We've gone back through bills, and I believe we kind of feel like $5,000 is about an average monthly veterinarian expenditure. So that's why the FY26 number reflects that.
Other questions or comments? Anybody? No, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, juvenile probation. Come on up and talk to us. Ms. Lewis and Mrs. Hood.
Good evening, guys.
Welcome.
I can say guys and lady. All right, so really just kind of want to touch base, start off by saying that I've been in this role now for a little over 2.5 years, so I feel like I'm getting the hang of this a little bit. So this time around, when we were really looking at the budget, I wanted to make sure that we are allocating funds in the best place possible. So you'll see that there are some changes, and of course there are some that have not changed, some line items. So in particular, if you look at, and you guys always have a question about that juvenile probation, that first line item for me. That line item is specific for emergency services for the community. So if we have a juvenile and a family that comes in and they're in an emergency situation really needing maybe some hospitalization or residential treatment counseling, this allows us to get the family that service without having to go through directly into the courts, without having to fact the case. So it's something that we really love to have. We don't tend to spend all that. We tend to probably spend about, let's see, $2,000, $1,500 less than that last year. But you always have a question about that, so I wanted to get on top of that. Postal services. We're not sending much through the mail anymore. A lot of things are electronic. So I feel comfortable in at least cutting that by half, 50%. The same goes for telecommunications. We are paying for one cell phone for our probation officer. It's been a pretty consistent payment. We don't really expect too much to change. Of course, the rates could increase a little bit. So I went ahead and decreased that as well by 50%. So we're only going to request $850. The two line items that we are requesting an increase on are office supplies. As you guys know, everything's costing a whole lot more. So with supply needs, cost and inflation, we've also decided to add our water delivery services so that our youth, our families, and our staff have that right on hand. So we've decided to request an increase of that of an additional $1,400, so that would bring the total of $2,250. The crime prevention grant. This is through VJCCA, the Virginia Juvenile Criminal Crime Control Act.
Good.
Got it?
Y'all got it. Keep going.
So essentially, you guys do, the county does a cash match. You are my fiscal agent. You are holding the funds for us. So if you break that down, The state allocation is $6,585. You all are cash matching for us, well, giving us a maintenance of effort would be the best way to put that, of $1,494. So we're looking at that total of $8,079. So that does not change or alter, that's coming from the state. And the other increase that we're requesting is mileage. I know Mr. Weekly, I know Mr. Dawson has been very much abreast of the transportation struggles that we're experiencing. The state has ruled and continued to rule that it is more cost-effective to pull fleet vehicles out of use. So we're using more personal vehicles and therefore increasing our mileage. We use this for home visits, detention visits,
fleet stuff.
community meetings, and of course, travel if we need to go for training. The state will allow us to request reimbursement through them, but as you know, they determine when we can and when we cannot. And I don't want any of my officers to be in a situation where we're not able to provide public service and public safety to the community because we don't have mileage. So that's where the increase is coming from. Everything else is the same amount as we've requested previously. Lodging and meals, seminars and tuitions. If we have a great opportunity for our staff to continue employee development, and perhaps it's something that the state isn't paying for. Also recently, the state has decided to pull back on a lot of lodging expenses. So this allows us that opportunity as well. And no change in regards to office equipment. The actuals are very similar to what the budget is.
Anybody?
I just want to add, so just because Supervisor Dawson and myself, we have scanned around for vehicles, whether it's any spare or repurpose of the county. Unfortunately, we run such a small operation, we don't generally have those in hand. So it's just sad that the state's pulling that back, because to do your job, you really need to have that transportation. Because I believe you all make trips up to Stafford just like I do on a monthly basis, different reasons, because I'm on that board. But it's sad that they are doing that. There are other ways. I know we revise budgets, but they're really taking one of those vital tools in your toolbox to perform your job. Encompass would be I don't know if they would offer you all an ability to participate in a fleet program. It may be different than it is. I know we explored and maybe even executed an MOU for our community paramedicine program to have a vehicle that we could pull from on a needed basis. I think there's a calendar that you fill out. That might be an opportunity. I'm happy offline to send you their information. But outside of that, we have not been fortunate to find a fleet vehicle for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the work that you all have done. Unfortunately, it's one of those that
We do have
we're very limited.
We do have a substandard Mercedes ambulance that we'd be willing to. Just an offer. Parks and Rec didn't want it. That should tell you something.
Are you gonna work on it first?
No.
Okay.
It's a fine vehicle, antiquity. The only one I've got to ask. I mean, when was use your juvenile probation as just in? I'm reading your narrative that goes with it, and I'm sure all of this is very important. When did you get close to using the $6,000 last? I mean, the other one that I'll hit is, I guess, use the mileage, and I hear about the fleet, but I mean, you're at you're at what, $179 through period 7. I mean, in your budget.
So
Explain.
We'll go to the mileage. So with the mileage, because this pool just happened, November was the last 2 additional vehicles. Our directive has been to forward all mileage to the state.
All right.
However, we just tried to pay out mileage last week and got an update that there was $35 left in the state budget for mileage.
Awesome.
So I don't want to ever be put in that situation where we're not able to perform our job, our essential job duties.
Sure.
And for the community, because of a situation like that.
Hmm.
So I would be very hopeful that we wouldn't need those full amounts, but I would like to know that it is there and available.
All right. Other questions, thoughts, comments? Yeah, we have to. I'm sure they have big plans for it. The electoral board's next. All right. Any other questions? Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Jim, Lauren, who's speaking for the electoral board? Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board, and staff for hearing our combined presentation today. Our registrar is Lauren Eames, will be dealing with the numbers. I'm joined by our secretary of the board. We're down to 2 people on the electoral board right now. Brian Mitchell is here. Shirley Ammon is awaiting appointment and swearing in by the judge. We had to fill the seat of Mike Sharman, who was disqualified when his wife got her petition in to run for Board of Supervisors. So when she became an active candidate under the Constitution, he was no longer a member of the board. There is no PowerPoint.
Good.
Good. And as presented last year and as in some of the handout materials you have, we're guided by the Constitution, numerous federal and state laws. Our overall goal is to make sure that we have fair, equitable, and elections that are conducted in a nonpartisan manner. At the electoral board level, we don't make any decision that's not unanimous. If it's a 2-to-1 vote, then we need to further discuss it. So that's just a matter of policy that we follow. Since our goal is pretty much directed by law as to what we have to do, there's a misunderstanding if we're not in total agreement. We've had numerous changes. This year, at the state law, most of the statutes are fairly static. State law has been anything but, and for the last 6 years, we have been just hit with new laws after new laws. Effective January 1 this year now, we will have to primary every local election if it's contested. So if 2 party members decide they want to primary, it has to be not conducted by the party. It has to be conducted by a state-run primary. So fortunately in Madison, actually the last party member that was on the Board of Supervisors was Jonathan. That was years ago. Traditionally, we'll get party endorsements, but certainly not party nominees. Other jurisdictions aren't like that. With that, we normally have two elections a year, sometimes 3. In presidential year, it's always 3. We budget assuming the number of either primaries or elections we'll have a year. We do not budget special elections. We're assuming you all have the good form not to die in office, so keep it up. And our budgeting is done pretty much on a evidence-based budget. We will have known and measurable changes, which are set forth in the numbers. Contrary to what some of the presentations from this podium, we look at fixed, variable, and indirect costs. And these costs are universally understood. The fixed costs you'll find when you look at the numbers are primarily housed with the electoral board. And the fixed cost would be the rent, the hiring of our 40-plus election officials and their training, the cost of the machinery, although our election equipment has been dealt with pretty much as a sunk cost. We will, when it's replaced in the hopefully distant future, we will look at the number of elections that have gone through and pretty much depreciate and better capture our fixed costs of elections that way. Variable costs would be the paper ballots, the sort of thing that goes into the cost. And the registrar's office itself is pretty much an allocated indirect cost. Although It is becoming the largest precinct that we have owing to early voting, which Lauren will give you some stats on that, which should be eye-opening. So as you'll see, the bulk of the items, the fixed costs, as I described, are primarily at the electoral board level, variable and some fixed, although we haven't separately accounted for the fixed cost of early voting out of the registrar's office. We certainly could. Lauren's going to take you through some of the specific numbers, and we will both be here to answer any questions that you might have following her presentation.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. So we were just going to run through quickly some of the early vote numbers that we're seeing lately. In the last November general election, which was the presidential, we saw 37.98% turnout of early voting, which was handled completely by me and my staff here in the office. That compared to election day was 39.27%. So a little over 1% difference between them. Years past, in 2020, which was the first election that we had early voting for, we saw 38.47% early in person, and then on election day it was 43.39%. Those numbers are pretty close to what we saw now, but we do have more registered voters in the county, so we're still voting more now than we were then. It's just a change in voter registration numbers. Primaries are pretty low turnout across the board, and we can kind of reflect that as cheap as we can when it comes to budgeting and things compared to it. And then we'll go ahead and get started on the numbers for our budget. We are budgeting here this year for 2 elections instead of 3. We've got a couple changes, but nothing very major. So as we run down the budget, we reduced data processing services for the election portion by $5,800. That's really just what goes into the planning, the preparation, the programming fees, things like that for the election. Electoral board fees went up about $226. That's just planning for that 3% COLA that the state will probably add to theirs. Office supplies we decreased by about $1,200, which would account for ballots. Lease buildings went down by $1,400 for the election, and of course that could go down more if we do have precinct changes. Mileage we dropped by a little bit just based off of what we were using previously. And then under equipment other, we did request $2,500. This would be for what's called our ballot on demand printing system. This is what's used every time that you walk in our office to vote. We check you in and then print you a ballot specifically for the precinct that you're in. We currently have 2 of them. We use them all the time, every day during voting. When I print our ballots that get mailed, I use the same thing, but I have to change it from the in-person to absentee. And we also have no spare of that. So if one were to go down and stop working, there's no backup or replacement. It would put us down to 1 until we could get that repaired or replaced. So this is really just us trying to get ahead of that and go ahead and have a 3rd one. And then moving down to the registrar's budget, we've got a little bit of an increase there in salaries and wages for part-time. That's really because Diana, who was my one part-time employee, has retired. She was only working a half a day, and I'm sure, as you guys can imagine, that's kind of hard to replace somebody who just wants to work a half a day. So the staff that I've hired to take her place will do that and work the 2 days, but they don't want that half a day shift. So it's a change there, and then just the 3% raise. Data processing services went up a little bit. We've got some more expectations that we're going to use Charles for in the future there. And books and subscriptions went up $20 because one of the yearly fees that we pay went from $100 to $120. Any questions on the budget portion? Nope. All right. So just if you go back to the handout that we had, more on potential savings. If we do consolidate the precinct of Wolftown and Graves Mill like we presented to you guys previously and we'll get to again on April 8th, this is a look at those potential savings that could come off of the electoral board even further. So that $2,930 is what we would save this year. And then, of course, that doesn't account for any equipment or expenses or anything like that that would come from it as well. And then moving on to capital improvement, I know that we've brought this up a couple times and I've shared the information with Jonathan and Jennifer. But the voting equipment that we have now was purchased in 2017. It does have a 10-year life expectancy, so we're coming up on end of life there. The vendor does tell us that it's okay for now as long as it still works. So just because you get to that 10-year lifespan doesn't mean you have to replace it, but there is always the possibility that the state is going to decertify what we have and make us replace it like they did in years past. So I did get a quote from our vendor. It's about $115,000 to replace exactly what we have right now. Of course, if we consolidate a precinct, it would be less than that. And there's other changes that we could possibly make going forward that could decrease that even more. But you've got inflation also. If we don't buy it for 2 or 3 years, that price is probably going to go up a little bit also. I think that's all we have on that information. We just want to be forthcoming and make sure that we're budgeting for this so that at the minimum, if it comes in 2027, that the county's prepared for it and we're not in the same situation that we were in 2017.
Do we have any backup machines now currently for the older machines?
We do. So we have 2 spares, and then if we consolidate Graves Mills, will become a spare also.
And I think last time, I was just having a sidebar with Ms. Warren. I think last time, Lauren, we did some 5-year lease or financing.
We did.
At like 25 a year or
Yes.
something like that. Okay. Was that through Hart, do you recall?
It
Did they offer that?
It was a financial firm that they recommended.
Okay. Okay. So the board, sounds like we could have some options. We'll look at it, but I think it's safe to say the earliest we would plan would be maybe next year's budget.
Definitely.
Okay. Tracking.
Wouldn't that go in capital too? It would. Yeah. Questions for either Jim or Lauren? And I'm taking the 2930 as a recommendation on Graves Mill. What, any questions, comments, thoughts, please?
The stats you gave on the voting, early voting and election day voting, the difference about 21%, was that absentee ballots?
You talk about the turnout percentage?
The turnout percentages.
So it was only a difference of about 1% from early voting to election day.
Okay, how many absentee ballots do we usually see in an election?
So early in-person, the combination of in-person and by mail last election was 4,098.
Okay, so the absentee ballots also are in with
Are
the...
in that, yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank
Yep.
you. I couldn't figure out where...
Early voting so that they wouldn't have to change every provision in the code dealing with voting. They call early voters early absentee voters. Now, it was early in-person absentee.
And they are reported separately. I just don't give us 2 different percentages.
But
Yeah.
the mail-in is not a huge number.
Mm-hmm. Couple hundred. I think we had like 300-ish. Thank you.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Good. I don't know if this thing's working or not. Did want to bring forward, would like to request a support of the chief deputy receiving her certification as a master chief deputy, which is supported by the comp board in a partial refund, or, yeah, partial refund would probably be the best term. It's not fully funded, but it's partially funded, the 9.3% and that would put her in line with how the study was conducted last year. I think that's all I did have a slight increase in part-time hours, just with the reassessment, and there's a lot of catch-up work to be done. But I do anticipate having more part-time hours there. Moving down through, I won't go through everything. Most of it's pretty stagnant. We saw some savings there. Concise, which is our CAMA software, our new CAMA software, is planned to be rolled out May or June. It could actually hit in FY26, so that we would actually continue that or be able to roll over that annual maintenance fee to the following year. We'll see where we land on that one. That's, doing away with the fuel line. Just normally it's done under reimbursement now of mileage. So we took that out of there. Slight increase in some dues that we pay. Slight increase in mileage. Seminars and tuitions, actually that one stays flat. We're seeing some savings there. The miscellaneous savings, that's VAMAnet. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the online assessment tool that or viewer that we had before. They're the one, they tried to increase their monthly fee from $300 to $900 with the help of Mr. Berry and IT and Laserfish. We were able to get something, the property cards posted online that supplemented that or took place of that. That was a great savings, I thought, that we were able to just abandon the VAMAnet altogether due to that huge price increase. And then our Concise CAMA system will have that same data already included in what we pay, so there's no change there. So, any questions on the Commissioner Revenue budget? All right. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped right over that one. And I might need some support from Jonathan here on this one because,
You want me to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
So we basically, we looked at what was programmed in the last time we went around. We did have some monies put in this year, but as you know, we're a little later behind in the process. So just looked at some historicals. That's basically your BOE members. The clerk position is separate of that. So while there are stipends per meeting for each member, the clerk is an hourly rate. So a lot of that was just looking at historicals.
We're anticipating, based on the assessor appeals, we're anticipating that to be less. So I think they felt comfortable adjusting some of those numbers there. The land use one's pretty simple. We don't have to pay for a separate module. That's the $500 reduction there. That's built in to the Concise program. So we're not paying that separately. Personal property, we know a little bit better about now that we've got the new software. We're doing an upgrade today on that. We know a little bit better about how many cars we're going to have to value and the price of the value, because there was a juggle between both. So we felt comfortable with the $6,500 on the data processing services. That's to value each vehicle that we have. The other things I think are staying flat there. So, and moving on to assessor. That's just our end of year permits that the assessors will come back and visit. Not a whole lot, let's see, a slight increase there. Just when you figure out about 350 parcels or 350 building permits $48 a piece to send, for them to go out and update those. And tax relief is, I'm not sure. Jennifer, help me out on that one. I mean, obviously it's zero, so it doesn't really
Yeah,
matter. but,
I'm going to take that one out. I don't,
okay,
that's
gotcha.
historical.
Gotcha. GIS, traditionally, we're able to turn back a little bit money on that. They haven't increased pricing since we've been with them. I'm hesitant to pull any out because, I mean, we do get such a value for what we pay them to manage our parcel layer. And you know, again, that's a great value in my opinion, and the web GIS service. So I think a lot of people, especially for the reassessment, visited that site. I can get numbers if y'all want to see, but I know how popular that site was and how advantageous it is to get that information out to folks.
And you don't have to update any of that information from your office.
We
all
push
the
it
site.
out. Yeah,
Yeah,
we push
you
it out monthly to them. But yeah, they have a connector that connects the database to the parcel layer.
And then at the bottom of page 2, I believe we're on here, talks about the compensation board's FY26 budget estimate I put for the board to be able to see, as well as the language on the 3% across the board salary increase and the one-time bonus. And that one-time 1.5% bonus is paid on the salaries today, not the new salaries.
And that's all in these numbers? that
Correct.
1.5, okay.
Correct.
All right, question for Brian? Anybody? Brian?
Do you want me to speak real quick on what we looked at for personal property revenues? Or, I know we talked last Thursday on the revenue side. I took a better look, or was able to get our software up, and unfortunately got written over this morning when we have started implementation of our new version. However, I was able to evaluate it. It appears we're pretty much no growth in that area as far as personal property. I mean, it's pretty much going to be, it might be a slight growth, but it's hard to predict that slight, you know, and I think that's the way we had it in the revenue budget, was pretty much flatline. So 10 cents would give you about 157,000 if you chose to increase it 10 cent or right. So if you went, it was, before
157. So the year before we reduced it considerably, we were at 360, right?
Correct.
And yeah, right. That's right, yeah.
Right, and that was due to the assessment increases of every vehicle. It does appear that they've gone back to traditional depreciation, average 10%. Vehicles are depreciating back similar to what they did before COVID, or whatever you want to call it.
Other comments? I think that's one that we should be thinking about a couple meetings from now, or we should be thinking about it now, certainly. Making any kind of comment on it, I think we're a little premature. Let's get a little bit farther ahead, and then we can talk about that side. It is good to know what the number is, to see where we historically were. Anybody else have anything, Brian? Brian, thank you.
Thank you.
Madison Free Clinic, Ms. Barner. Come on down, Doreen, come on down and talk to us. Come on.
Hello, my name is Diane Barner, and I'm the Executive Director of the Madison Free Clinic. Thank you for your time this afternoon and for allowing us to present. With me is Doreen Jenkins. She is our board member and our volunteer nurse on Fridays. So a little bit about the clinic. We've been around since 1998. And we've been around since 1998. It started with 4 women who saw a hole that needed to be filled, that there wasn't affordable health care or access to a lot of health care, and they started the clinic up. And actually, one of the founding women is still on the board. She's our medical director, and she gives her time on Thursday, well, tonight, to provide services, Dr. Bargeman. So we serve the uninsured and underinsured. The uninsured, that's kind of obvious. The underinsured is where people sort of get held up. If you have Medicaid, Medicare, insurance, but you don't have dental, eye care, we can help with that. So that's considered underinsured. So people don't think of that, but that's a really important need. So we offer medical, dental, vision, mental health, and case management. The dental is a bit of an issue because the board had to decide in the summer to kind of put that on hold. And that's mainly teeth cleaning. We can still do some emergency work, but it's mostly teeth cleaning. And as you know, that's very important. It's about $250 a person to have their teeth cleaned. We work with Piedmont Dental, and they can get an x-ray, and it helps towards their overall health. I looked it up right before I came, we have at least in the last month 20 inquiries for people wanting to get their teeth cleaned because they can't afford it and they don't have insurance. We can't help them right now because that's what we're asking for help here. We do, like I said, do some emergency cases, cracked teeth, cavities, that kind of stuff. But it's really the teeth cleaning that is preventative and that saves the county and everybody else a lot of money. So all of our services are at no cost to our patients. We cover everything that we offer. So I did a little research. I don't know where my PowerPoint is. Population of Madison County is 14,000 and change as of July 2024. And currently, the uninsured rate is at 11%. 11% of the population in the county is uninsured. Underinsured is kind of hard to gauge, so we don't have a number for that. There is a statewide survey that's done, and it's the overall health of the county. So Madison, for overall health care compared to the rest of the state, is 30 out of 100. But for health behaviors, they're 60 out of 100. And health behaviors are, well, what you really want to get to, people getting vaccinated. We do vaccinations. People taking care of their oral hygiene, getting their teeth cleaned. The regular maintenance that we all strive to do. In 2022, Virginia Department of Health did a needs assessment of Madison, Fauquier, that's a hard one for me to say, and from where I'm from, and Culpeper. And the number one social determinant of health, access to health care, and that, sorry, I can't read my own writing. I was thinking it was going to be a PowerPoint. Health outcomes, Madison rates 74 out of 100. So that's not actually terrible. But what are health outcomes? Well, that is people reporting that their physical, mental health, well-being is positive, how they take care of themselves, a decrease in sick calls, in ambulance runs,
That's what I'm looking for.
and an increase in the preventative. And then, of course, for mental health, Madison scored 62 out of 100. One of the main problems that our patients say, well, for dental, is access to a good provider that they can afford. And also, if you're here in Madison, you're either going to Culpeper or you're going to Charlottesville for health care. And there's no urgent care. There aren't that many providers. So our goal is to try, is to try to prevent diseases so that people don't need to be rushed to the emergency room, and it costs the county money when that happens. So we provide the preventative, and then hopefully that goes down. Now, for the dental services, we have regular checkups. Okay, they're key. For medical emergencies, it prevents oral disease. So when we get people's teeth cleaned, their chance of oral disease goes down, their overall health improves. An infection in your mouth can lead to coronary issues. And that again, if somebody has a problem and they have to have the county take them to the hospital, it costs the county. Early detection of symptomatic diseases, it reduces the risk of certain cancers, oral health, and supports mental health issues, because often if you don't like the way your teeth look or have pain or whatever, it can affect you. We work with the local providers, like I said, the Piedmont Dental Clinic, and we provide the dental cleanings. We provide emergency dental. Well, we want to provide the dental cleanings, emergency dental, and then it, again, ultimately will save the county money if we prevent some of those other things I mentioned, heart disease, that kind of stuff. That's kind of it. I mean, it was quick. We wanted to do it quick. Not take too much of your time. Do you have any questions?
All right, I have one, and I've been going through my notes while I'm listening. Why did we cut you all last year?
Mr. Chairman, before
please.
we have we do
Thank
not
you.
see a request from last year.
Yeah, I don't, and during, you can back me up on this, I don't believe we've ever received financial support. We did receive in-kind housing.
We were in your building before you decided to upgrade, which is a beautiful building, by the way.
Yeah.
But we got cut out.
All right.
So we are also now paying rent, and we've enlarged from the place where we are, we've just added another room, so we're paying a little bit more rent. So that's why,
All right.
I mean,
No,
I don't
that's
think
that's
you
why.
purposely cut us out, but we haven't been on your schedule before since we've left the building.
But you didn't submit an application last year, correct?
We don't see.
I don't see one.
I don't believe one was.
Okay.
I just started in September, but I don't believe one
Yeah,
was.
I don't see one. So I just wanted to clarify that
No.
last year, there wasn't an application.
You're right on that, there was none.
All right.
So how many square feet are y'all occupying up there now?
Well, you know how much we had before.
Uh-huh.
And we added one large, it'd be like a small classroom. I'm not good on footage.
Back towards the street?
No, it's toward the realtor's office, down the hallway
Yeah.
across from the bathroom.
Right, right.
I'm bad at footage too, so.
Yeah.
I think it's around 900
Basically, what
square
that
feet.
did, it gave us a second exam room that we were using for all office space. And that way she has space away from the general flow of patients and office management.
All right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one.
Okay.
I do. Since it is the first time asking, I'm sorry, I'm just blunt. If we decide not to do the 10, what would be a different figure that you all would be shooting for?
20? No.
No, that's the wrong way. It's good thinking, though.
You know,
We depend on, I mean, whatever you give us is helpful.
right.
And we depend on grants, donations. COVID actually, because it was here and because the government gave us a lot of testing and we we were able to test just about everybody in the community. We got a lot of donations after that because a lot of people weren't even aware we existed. So that was very helpful. That has decreased. So we're kind of in a flux, and
No.
anything you give us, we thank you. Yes.
Anybody else? Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right. Madison 4-H education.
Is it Northern Virginia?
Yeah, Northern Virginia. There you go. And Conference Center. Yes. Hot dog. Welcome, Miss Tennant. Thank you, ma'am. The
All
word must
right,
not be getting
thank you
around.
for your time, board. I am Katie Tennant. I'm the Executive Director of the Northern Virginia 4-H Center. So we are up in Front Royal, but Madison is one of our counties. So we serve 19 counties, and we are kind of the home base for the 4-H camp and programs in the summer. And part of the 4-H model is inclusiveness. So we try to offer those as low cost as possible, and we actually subsidize the camp fee. So our camp fee, we lose about $100 a camper. We try to make up $50 of that with our other groups and our other programs that we do. And then I go to all of the 19 counties and ask them to support us with that other $50. So if you see on the first page, that ask is specifically for the 85 campers that came from Madison County last year. I'm only asking for you to subsidize who is in your jurisdiction here. If you flip to page 2 of the handout I gave you a little bit, since our focus is camp, my favorite thing, you don't have this over there, I just gave it to them, I didn't send it ahead of time. There's too much going on today. But with the camping program, it is really focusing on how we are building those leaders and how we are developing those kids. So we give a survey at the end of every camp session, and some of the feedback we got from Madison campers was, because of camp, I don't get as frustrated, I am kinder, I can take care of myself, I am more respectful. And then I learned at camp, my absolute favorite, I learned to live without my phone, how to form meaningful connections, how to be a better leader and more responsible, and solve problems and stay calm under pressure, which are all life skills that I think are important for all of us, not only the kids, but those are sometimes the kids don't get in their everyday life. And then there's also some quantitative data there that you can look at that they said before camp, after camp. We kind of ask them to quantify as we go through. The big thing, if you look at the very last page there, is as a nonprofit, we are unique because we are partnered with 4-H, we are partnered with Virginia Cooperative Extension, but we are our own 501c3 nonprofit. So the only state funds we receive are my salary and my program director's salary. So similar to Keller Mallory here in Madison, we are VCE employees and then kind of like contracted out to the center. So that accounts for about 7% of our budget. The rest of it we have to raise. So we do grants and we do fundraising and all of that. Last year was an amazing grant year for us. I kind of put on there some pictures. We were able to do some great facility renovations. We renovated our tennis courts, our pickleball. We actually turned tennis into pickleball courts. We did our campfire circle. We did some of our lodging. We're almost a 50-year-old facility, so there's a lot of things that need the upkeep. And I work really hard to bring in the grant money, so the money that we bring in from programs can go directly towards the camping program. So our ask is just for you to partner with us and support us in getting those kids to camp and getting them the experience. Then the very last thing I'll point out on that very last slide on the bottom left is we try to be really competitive. So I did some research here in Madison County. So if you come to the 4-H Center for a week of camp, we charge $315. That is a resident 5-day, 4-night camp. That's meals, that's air conditioning, lodging, that's all the activities they're gonna do. If you look at Camp Varsity that's here in town, theirs, I broke it down because theirs was 7 days, so I did a little bit of math. If you did a 5-day camp, it would cost $821. And if you went to the Shiloh Quaker camp, it would cost $982 for that 5-day experience. So we are trying to do the best we can with our resources. We're pretty much in line with the Madison County Parks and Rec. They run a day camp, but I also put that on here. So if you were to use kind of their ratio per camper per hour, it would be about $300. So we're only about $15 off the Parks and Rec, which is funded through government agencies. What questions can I answer?
Who has questions? Anybody?
So the $50 per camper that you're talking about,
Correct.
is that just for income eligible kids or for all
No, we
kids?
subsidize across the board. So camp costs us a little bit over $400 per child, but we only charge them a little over $300 per
So
child.
somebody paying full boat would be paying $315.
Correct, yes.
And the camp costs what?
400.
About $415. Yeah, it's about $100. We subsidize half and we ask the counties
Okay.
to support us that other half. And that's just to break even. That's not to make a profit on it.
Anybody else? Thank you, Ms.
Okay,
Warner.
I appreciate your time. If
Yes,
you think
ma'am.
of anything, shoot me an email.
Thank you. All right. All right, are we starting with the new boss or old boss for IT? New? It's gonna be expensive. All right, Alan.
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
Yeah,
Made it to
we'll
the
see,
podium.
we will see. IT.
Give me 1 second to get my stuff up here. All right, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I am the current systems administrator. As you will soon find out, I will be moving into the role of IT manager. I have with me the old IT manager, Bruce Livingston, and I also have Mr. Steve LaRose from Magna 5. So if there are any further questions about Magna 5 or whatever services that they provide, he is here to help answer those questions. To our budget, most of our budget is pretty much the same. The vast majority of our budget is comprised of renewals and support services that we pay for. And I should have started off with this, but I'm going to bring it up now. We're asking for 0.8% of an increase of our last year budget. So, huge amount of money, but that's what it is. I've already went over, Bruce will be retiring. I'll be moving into that position for the salary and wages full-time. What we're asking for is to backfill the Systems Administrator 1 position for fiscal year '26. So just the general gist of that change. We will need that person. I will be moving into Bruce's role. I will do my very best that I can. But segueing out of that, we are asking for some money for the consulting services line to retain Bruce for a while until we get this next systems administrator up to speed and they can take some of the load off of me and Federico. So for a time, we do ask that he be retained through that line item so we don't get overwhelmed immediately after he vacates his position. The second one would be the data processing services. This is where most of our renewals and support agreements come with. Dell, VMware, all of that stuff, we have agreements with them to help in case there is an issue. Magna 5 is also funded through this line. We have attached a spreadsheet that has a breakdown of the costs through them. We're anticipating a end-of-life replacement plan for some of the access points and firewalls that I believe we received a quote for that today. So we may have a slight increase to that line here in the future. I believe I provided that quote to the board and the administration team. So that will be probably coming in the future. It may be a smidge increase on that line. Next, we have the annual support fees and ERP. So this is our Avinity, which works for the treasurer and the commissioner of revenue. We have Laserfish, Tyler, and the RDA legacy access data. We are asking for 7 new licenses, full user licenses for Laserfish and 1 QuickFields license for Laserfish. The full user license basically lets people get into Laserfish, use it as they see fit with all of its features attached. The QuickFields license is what we used with Brian Daniel, who is no longer here. Essentially, he had 30,000 plus pages in a PDF that we needed to scan to get rid of the Bama stuff. So he provided us with documentation, 10,000 pages each PDFs. We put it in here, scanned it, took the metadata, renamed it. So it's where it needs to be now, and we now no longer have VAMAnet. Let's see. For software subscriptions, we do have the Smartsheet Dynamic View, 3 licenses for me, Bruce, and Federico. The Adobe licenses comes from that line, and we do have some other miscellaneous stuff that's a renewal there. You'll also notice that we have several of our lines have been consolidated into other things. This is mostly for ease of access because we had some overlap, I guess is what you would say. We're not sure where which line money was supposed to come from, so now it's mostly been consolidated into IT equipment and maintenance and software and software subscriptions, my mistake, sorry.
Hey, Alan, is that Adobe, those Adobe licenses, is that annual or is that one time?
It is annual. We have Adobe Pro DC, which
Yeah.
is used for the redactions. We have a few members of the sheriff's office that use that, and we also have Adobe Standard DC, which is the general use for PDF editing. Most of the departments have some form of those licenses. All right. Let's see, where was I at?
Sorry.
Okay. For telecom, we are asking for a smidge more. We do want to purchase an audio codes device. If we have wireless phones attached in a department for the animal shelter or the Kemper Mansion, we have these devices in there that help facilitate that. It's an analog to digital merger, essentially. Steve could probably provide better details on that than I could, but it works. For office supplies, just a small increase based on if we get this new person in there, we're gonna have to get them some stuff, notepads, documents, papers, all that good stuff. Any kind of small furniture items we would need to accommodate them.
How much more can you put in that office, Alan?
Not much.
Oh.
We figured we would apply for a building from y'all for
Good.
next year's fiscal year. We'll see how far that goes. I think that's the vast majority of it. The IT equipment and maintenance line item has been reduced slightly based on what I'm about to get to with capital. For the capital, that is where we're going to be replacing our servers and sand. This is our big ask for this year coming from capital. It may be contingency now. I'm leaning on admin and finance for that. But essentially what we're asking for is this. We have a lot of desktop endpoints, all-in-ones, laptops, tablets. These machines are at end of life. Some of the computers we have here are struggling to maintain with current systems. We would like to see an attrition plan put in place where we can start to replace these older machines with new ones. The other big ask is our server upgrades. So we have 3 Dell Power Edges that basically run all of the county's infrastructure. All of our VMs go through those 3 things. And the storage area network, which is the storage for that. They're pretty much end of life right now. They will run out end of life in fiscal year 26. And the other big draw that we have for that is the SAN, our storage. We need more storage. Laserfish has essentially run out of space at this point. We cannot proceed with that until we get more space. You look like you have a question.
Yeah, what percentage of, and Commissioner Revenue is using Laserfish probably the heaviest of anybody?
I would say right now it's probably the building department.
All right, excuse me. What about all the documents are we scanning those and throwing those into Laserfish continually?
The building department, to the best of my knowledge, is yes, sir. That's our space eventually has become, how do I put this? We had 25 gigabytes the other day. We had the 30,000 plus documents from the Commissioner of Revenue who generously agreed to remove those documents so that we could free up that space because we were closing in pretty quickly on that server having 0 space left. I would say the SAN is probably our biggest, most important thing we need to get up to snuff as soon as possible.
Mr. Berry?
Yes, sir.
I would just let you guys know that over the next 4 or 5 years, as people do start unloading their filing cabinets and their walls of boxes that they've got documents in, you're gonna probably have to revisit this whole space thing again each year. I mean, we only have so much space, and we're gonna upgrade this thing this year, and we'll have enough to go forward. But as more people start going electronic, we're gonna need more space ultimately again. So that's TBD. It really is dependent on, I'm sure we could put something together to show you how much space ultimately we could potentially need, but you're not gonna wanna go out and buy that all at once. Just
The plan currently for Laserfish is to use a staggered approach. The 7 licenses we were asking for earlier, basically that would cover the entirety of this building being brought into Laserfish, county admin, finance, HR. Those people would get it, and then we would move continuously throughout the years to the other departments as these ones were brought in. So our space needs would evolve over time, but we're going for the staggered approach at this moment.
Where did all the information go from Brian's office? You said they took it out of Laser?
It's being held in OneDrive.
OneDrive.
So
How much-
it was a lot of data.
How much storage space do we have currently?
For laserfish,
Just a holistic approach, the whole, I mean, how many terabytes of, I mean, whatever's above terabytes?
About 6.
6
6 terabytes? Is that what-
I think our Eastern thing actually has that. I mean,
Well, I know that.
It don't matter. Your server request through Capital, is understandable. What about the replacement of some of these? What kind of plan do you have in place for the replacement of some of these computers and desktops that are hitting end of life?
So we attached a rudimentary attrition cycle. We have a list of the computers and the ones that are currently end of life through our Dell support. We would be approaching probably those with most needs first, like machines that are really heavily struggling with the current load that they are being put under, and we would move from there. I think the thing is, we're looking to replace 50 computers with this current cycle, or is it 25?
At 150.
25.
At 156 total.
Alan, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why don't we encourage using OneDrive for departments? Is there a reason?
Our OneDrive, if we used it for everyone, we would run out immediately. The current heavy load of OneDrive is being used by the Commonwealth Attorney. When we removed their documents from the group drive, that took up, I believe, a little over half of our available OneDrive space. It's a shared pool through SharePoint.
Okay. So we have a limit, is what
Yes.
you're saying with OneDrive?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And OneDrive also doesn't have the other features that Laserfish offers, including the metadata and the quick field stuff. To the OneDrive? Yes, we can pay for additional storage to OneDrive if that is so desired.
Alan, I want to ask you, how do you back up the SAN? How's that backed up?
The SAN is backed up, I believe, through our Unitrends appliance.
And I'm sure Magna 5 is a backup too, right? Do you? Oh,
It
well,
is
there you
just
go,
our
Unitrends.
So we have no really off-site backup of our SAN.
The Unitrends, if I remember
It is.
correctly, does do cloud hosting for
Yeah.
a month.
Now, we've got DR with Unitrends, and if for whatever reason we lost everything, they would spin that up in the cloud for 30 days.
30 days.
And that would give us time to rebuild our infrastructure one way or another.
Okay.
But yeah, we're protected. We have it on site, and we also have it in the cloud.
Okay, thanks.
Real quick, so can you go back to the other budget screen? There is a capital request of the 129. I don't have my other sheet in front of me because I was looking at it. I think I had at one point a specific number for the computer replacements. Do we know the separate number for that and then the server cost?
25,000?
We do. We had, in our capital meeting, it was 40,000 for the 25 desktops, and then the remainder of that balance was for your server upgrades, for the quote that you received, because we have a copy of the quote. And I don't know if Clay, you may have asked this question, but the 159,000, that's in operations. It is sitting on the line item, data processing services, which is showing a 159,012. That's the managed services line item.
So one strategy, and I'm getting ahead of myself because we're going to have, obviously you're hearing department requests first time, and then administrative, I have some suggested revisions, but we always look at towards the end of the year, whether it's departmental budgets, if they're running favorable, or contingency. And this is an area that, at least the equipment-wise, and I didn't spring this on him now, I mentioned this to Alan earlier, at least those desktops, we might look to reduce your FY '26 request for those and purchase them out of FY '25 contingency. So, again, there'll be some revisions and things come along, but I'll go back and look at the server cost as well.
All right, who else has questions? Anything else? All right, thank you, Alan.
Thank you, sir.
Gentlemen? All right, I've got to, just so I understand. Looking at the budgetary renewals for the 159 or the 156, 505, that is we have 100, with Magna 5, we have 156K.
Alan?
Mr. LaRose, yeah, Alan, come back up here, please. I'm
The
sorry.
data processing, so the chairman's asking, can you,
Yeah.
what Ms. Warren has on the screen, the 156, is that all with service provisions through Magnify?
So those bottom two, the managed service, the managed prevention, logging, and compliance, that is Magna 5's. That's what we pay them routinely, monthly. Or, no, that's the total, isn't it? Yeah, that's the annual
Let's hope
cost
it's
right
not
there.
monthly.
The top part of that is basically the renewals that we pay for through them and any replacement hardware that we would be getting.
All right. And you all have taken over the archive social side,
Yes, sir.
minimal as it is, all right.
That is added at the bottom right.
Yeah,
in that
no, I
little
see
yellow
it.
box.
I see it.
I think one thing we could do is separate explain maybe later that the licensing versus the hardware and physical servers, we're gotta pay that no matter who. It goes to the magnified budget, but nowhere, whoever you were working with on Earth, you'd have another, 60 grand probably in licensing and stuff that would peel off of that bill. So really, their services are coming in about, I don't know the exact number, but it's not as expensive as it looks right there.
Should be that around 87, plus the other support stuff that we pay for. Like the Microsoft Office, the licenses right up there, the 44,800, I believe.
Yeah.
Like, we just pay for that through this line.
No, I just don't think that I've ever seen it broken down like this. It's very helpful, very, very helpful.
That's Alan Berry for you.
No, that's good. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen it broken down like this. I do appreciate it.
And
Well
Jennifer
done.
Warren.
Good job, Miss Warren.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Apologize, where are we here?
On Foothills Child
Yeah,
Advocacy.
all right. Foothills Child Advocacy. Miss McKinney, come on down. I do, I like that. I don't think I've ever seen that
Hi.
before. That's a very clean.
Hello.
Should I just get started?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Sherry McKinney, and I have the privilege of being the CEO at Foothills Child Advocacy Center. Could go to the next slide, please. Foothills is the only child advocacy center that serves Madison County children. And if you aren't familiar with the Child Advocacy Center, what happens is law enforcement, your local law enforcement or your local DSS gets a concern that a child has typically been sexually abused, could also be a severe physical abuse case or neglect, but typically sexual abuse. They reach out to us, we schedule a forensic interview, they come to our center, which is trauma-informed, very child-centered, very child-friendly, and together we work to provide services. So if you go to the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So I'll start in the middle. So at Foothills, we provide 4 core services. The first is a forensic interview, which is where we have a very specially trained person who meets one-on-one with the child. The interview is audio and video recorded, so the child does not have to tell their story over and over and over because that's not healthy for kids. And this is a legally sound, non-leading interview. While the interview is going on, law enforcement and children's services and sometimes other team members are watching the interview. While the child is being interviewed, Our family advocate is working with that caregiver because what research shows us is that the number one thing that determines a kid's resilience is that they have one person in their life that has their back and supports them. And we want that to be that caregiver. Almost always, frequently, typically is the right word. Typically, the perpetrator of this abuse is somebody that the family knows, loves, and trusts. So this is not stranger danger. This is something that rocks families to its core. So we have a family advocate that supports the caregiver so they can help their child. We provide on-site medical exams. We have a partnership with UVA Health, and they have an exam room right in our office, and they're able to do many, not everything. We don't have an x-ray machine, but other than that, they're able to do most things at the Child Advocacy Center. The last thing we want a child to do is have to go sit in the ED with 400 other people when they have experienced trauma. Lastly, we participate in our multidisciplinary teams, which is really what makes child advocacy centers, that's kind of the magic, right? The services that we provide are critical, but what really makes things work is that law enforcement and children's services and the Commonwealth's attorney, who I have a letter of support from that hopefully you have a copy of. They couldn't be here. Wade is at his son's science fair tonight, so that's important. But Commonwealth's attorney, mental health providers, UVA Health, et cetera, we all meet monthly. Your Commonwealth's attorney, they facilitate that meeting where we are active partners and we are talking about cases that come through, what kids need, what services they need, where we are with prosecuting the offender, if that's something that is possible. And we literally track these cases from the beginning to the end. And that's really what makes this work for kids, is that very collaborative teamwork. So we're not working in silos and kids aren't sharing their story over and over and being re-traumatized. Last year, we served 15 children from Madison County. It cost us about $3,000 to serve a child. As of July 1 to December 30, we had served 9 children already. So potentially on track to serve 18 children this year. Do you have any questions?
Anybody? Over.
Where do you all get most of your funding from?
Oh, great question. Currently, about 53% of our budget is grant funding, either localities or federal or state funding. Almost 40% are state or federal dollars, which has us very concerned right now, as you can imagine. Really doing everything we can and have fundraised more money than ever already this fiscal year. So really trying to grow that funding stream so we are not so reliant on government funding.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to ask, I did see an increase from last year's request, or at least what was budgeted, is what I'm looking at. Is that due to any cuts from other funding sources, is why that request increased?
Yes, we've been told that, we were told last year we may not receive VOCA funding, which is this year about 10% of our budget. And we have been told we absolutely will not receive it this year.
You said VOCA?
Victim of Crime Act dollars. Those are federal funds that fund through DOJ to the state DSS. Sorry to use all these acronyms. And we have been informed that there will be no VOCA dollars. So we currently get about $90,000 in VOCA, so it's about 9% of my budget.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions?
Yeah, what's your territory, or what do you cover?
Oh, thanks for asking. We serve 9 localities, so Charlottesville, Albemarle, Buckingham, Nelson, Fluvanna, Orange, Louisa, Madison, Greene. Mm-hmm. We're on pace to do about 360 forensic interviews this year.
Yeah, that's the right comment.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
All right,
Marty.
yeah, I'm looking at FY26 Madison budget. Just help me understand here. FY26 Madison County submitted total agency expenses, $1,009,000.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you look at the 990 for 23, your total revenue and expenses are like 700,000.
Correct.
So, and that would cover, I mean, 990 covers everything.
Correct.
So what am I missing?
Are you asking why the budget increase?
Yeah,
Yeah, we completely revamped our staffing model and have hired additional staff to facilitate the footprint that we have.
all right.
Are your abuse numbers going up, levels down?
Yes, so they're going up. You know, there's a pretty consistent trend up, and then of course during COVID, the majority of our referrals come from schools. So when children weren't in school, things really slowed down because people weren't seeing kids, and so they couldn't report. But we definitely are on pace to be busier than we were last year at this time. And I believe that this year, I believe if we do about 365 interviews, I believe that's the most we've ever done. If not the most, it's darn close.
All right. Anybody else? Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
All right. Boys and Girls Club. Graham, come on down.
Hey, how's it going, Clay?
Howdy.
How's everybody else doing? Thanks for having us. You know, obviously I'm here on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club. You know, first we want to thank the Board of Supervisors and the school board for your all's support on the alternative education building that we use. You know, essentially that's financial support in its own way, in addition to what you guys provide each year. So we do just want to start out by thanking you all for being supportive of that. The money that you guys provide and the building support that we get from you all provides reliable and affordable child development care for many children in our community. And it's at about $150 cost annually for those who are members of the club. Our club is currently serving roughly 200 children in the community each year. And on a daily basis, roughly around 90 children are participating in the Boys and Girls Club. That's from ages 5 to 18. As a parent, I have 4 children who are members of the club. I can say that it's more than just a child development center. It's really do focus on education, community service, character development. It's just much bigger than just a child care center. And I just want to emphasize that as a parent. You know, for many years, we promoted our priority outcomes in the areas of academic success, health and well-being, character and leadership. Recently, we have added a life and workforce readiness to our priorities, which I think has been really good. So our members are now participating in career chats, learning financial literacy. They're also just little things like when we do our routine maintenance on our bus, they're participating in the learning about the mechanic and automotive careers with Madison Ford, which is great. You know, we recently had 5 students participate in a nationwide STEM competition. They got coined as the Magnificent 5. They were basically trying to solve a problem to figure out how to keep tree houses from, how to sustain tree houses in floods. But they did such an excellent job. They got invited to a national competition in St. Louis, which is great, STEM competition. So they'll be participating then in that hopefully this year. As you guys know, one of our biggest priorities right now is club space, and that has been a priority for some time. We're really proud of the relationship we have with the Madison County Public School System. Particularly, it's coming up here, we're looking to set up a new agreement where we're going to be able to use this building, the alternative learning building, full-time, but that's going to come at a rent, which is very close to the model that other counties have with Central Virginia. I think that that's going to it's going to help out their staff and members to have a more permanent space and to have a more welcoming environment for our Boys and Girls Club there. So I'm really happy about that. As you guys know, we're asking for $10,000 this year. I think this past year you guys gave 500. The year before that it was 0. I think since I've been up here presenting, the numbers have gone down significantly, so I don't know why they keep sending me up here, but I do appreciate the trust and allow me to advocate. But we do appreciate what we do get from the county. Barring any questions, that's all that I have.
Questions for Graham? Anybody? Graham, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Piedmont Regional Dental Clinic. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name's Sherry Landry. I serve as Executive Director of Piedmont Regional Dental Clinic. First, I want to thank you for the support that you provided in last year's budget, not only to the dental clinic, but to all these good organizations that are doing important work in Madison County. As you may know, Piedmont Regional Dental Clinic is a nonprofit dental clinic providing dental care to close to 5,000 people last year, 90% of whom were low income. So Piedmont, the dental clinic accepts Medicaid, which many local providers do not. So we see a lot of Medicaid patients. And then also we have an affordable care program that allows low-income people from Madison County who are uninsured to get their care at reduced rates. Last year we served 518 Madison residents, up from 467 the year before. And we also our board voted to provide free emergency care for Madison residents who are low income and uninsured, which I'm really proud of, because if you've ever had a really bad toothache or a tooth infection, you know that it impacts every part of your life. And so knowing that people can come to us and get that taken care of means a great deal to me, more to the patients. We also, in the fall of 2024, the board further expanded our affordable care program so that we began providing free comprehensive care for uninsured low-income children. So that means they can come for exams, cleanings, fillings, kitty root canals, or whatever they need. As well, we do go into the Madison County schools to do exams and x-rays and cleanings twice a year. So, do you have any questions?
So Sherry, I mean, earlier, so the Madison Free Clinic was appealing to us for dental funds. So do they send funds over to you all for the Madison folks?
Yeah, for some of their patients, in the past, they had a fund that they could use for dental care, so they would send people to us with a cap of like $800 or $1,000 per year for their dental care. Okay. So they do help with, those funds do help us out. I mean, we accept those from Madison County Free Clinic when they send patients to us to help make up the difference. So the Virginia Association of Free and Charitable Clinics values a dental visit at $320 per visit. So last year, of those patients I told you we served from Madison County, 82 of them were affordable care patients. So they had no insurance, low income, could have received free comprehensive care if they were a kid, free emergency care, or other care at half price. So for those 82 patients alone, that represents $26,240 in free care. And that does not take into consideration the Medicaid patients that we see whose care is not reimbursed at regular rates. So it's much lower than other insurers. We're very happy to provide this care. It's what we do, and we feel very good about it and really appreciate your support.
Anybody else from Ms. Landry? Thank you, Ms.
Okay,
Landry.
thank you all.
Legal Aid Works. Welcome. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Ann Klockner. I'm Executive Director at Legal Aid Works. We have been serving your citizens of Madison County since 1980. We are asking you, as we have done in the last several years, to restore funding to our organization. Our two-attorney office in Culpeper covers 5 counties, including Madison County. We try to cover those 5 counties with just those 2 lawyers. It's kind of like an emergency room without enough doctors. We're triaging all the time. What we handle is specific civil legal needs for people who are facing situations such as domestic violence. They'll need a civil protective order. We work closely with SAFE and their clients. We also help people avoid illegal evictions or foreclosures to keep them housed. And we make sure that we also maintain a robust website with downloadable brochures about Know Your Rights. I want to draw particularly your attention to our resource tab that has what we call our housing guide, which lists all the rights and responsibilities of tenants in Virginia, as well as at the back of that guide, a listing of all the affordable housing we know of in the community. We help your local government in several specific ways. We take the strain off your social services safety net by lifting clients out of poverty with enforceable court orders of child and spousal support that the clients would not otherwise have won without our legal intervention. We help your county court system run more efficiently by helping those who can't afford an attorney. The ones who represent themselves slow the system down considerably. We also help your local law enforcement by providing representation for domestic violence victims. When they have a civil protective order in place due to our representation, they are able to keep safe, and the law enforcement agencies in this county get the assistance they need. We leverage this financial support that we get from the localities to benefit the citizens you serve. In the last fiscal year, we have been able to obtain over $400,000 for our own clients based on awards of child and spousal support. When you pledge allegiance, you pledge allegiance to the flag, and you also are pledging allegiance to our mission, which is justice for all. The last 3 words of the Pledge of Allegiance are justice for all. If that is an empty pledge, it doesn't really make sense to keep pledging to it. But this is your opportunity to put your money where your pledge is and support justice for all in this community so that we can have a level legal playing field for people who are low income. Any questions?
Questions, Ms. Klockner? Anybody? Thank you, Ms. Klockner.
Thank you.
All right. Kelly, come on down and talk to us about the Madison County Extension. I hear you had a good dinner the other night. Good.
All right. Good afternoon to the board, and thank you for having me here. I'm Kelly Mallory. I'm currently serving as the unit coordinator and 4-H agent for the Madison Office of Virginia Cooperative Extension. Our mission encompasses youth, family, local citizen, producer, and landowner education. We recently completed a situation analysis, which I believe you all got a copy of at some point, which highlighted 4 areas that will drive our programming in the next 5 years: food safety and healthy lifestyles, environment and best management practices, workforce readiness, career development, youth support services, and community activities. So our 2024 return on investment calculations show that extension returns $3.17 for every dollar invested by Madison County, And community members who serve as volunteers contribute over $144,000 to our programming. So most of you know our office recently went through a transition with the retirement of Brad Jarvis, and we have been very fortunate to hire Greg Lillard in that ag agent role, and he has hit the ground running, and our office phone is ringing with lots of calls for the ag agent, so that's really great. Keeping him busy, some of the more unique clients in Madison County as well, so they're finding him, and he's trying to help them as best he can. And as reflected in our budget line for seminars and tuition, we have asked for additional funds to help support additional training opportunities for Greg as he gets into his role and finds the need for more training and professional development opportunities. And the other line item in our budget you'll see that had an increase is that as we move past our transition and forward with a office fully staffed with all of our agents, we do plan to rehire a part-time educator / office staff person, and that's the increase you see in that salaries and wages line item in our budget. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Anybody have anything for Ms. Mallory? Ms. Mallory, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Lauk, last one of the day.
She came early, I texted
Yeah,
her.
wait, no, everybody's being diligent, they know how these go. She doesn't have a PowerPoint, so we're all encouraged. This is a win-win. Tell us about the court, Ms. Lauk.
We've been busy. But I think probably the first, I don't know, do you want me to do the circuit court part of it first or the clerk's office? Circuit court, I don't think really I didn't go up much, except that the hearing aid device that we currently have is going bad. Every time, I think Chuck can, every time a truck or something that goes by, it will go out. So I've looked into getting an infrared one. So the increase in my budget shows that. I will say, I've had 2 juries go off for this fiscal year. So I'm thinking I'll have a little bit of money in my jury this year, and I could probably use that money to go ahead and get this thing. So FY26 budget, that may go down then, that way.
There you go.
And then in the clerk's office budget, I don't think anything's, I do have some computers and monitors that the Supreme Court is telling me that are way past being, needing to be retired. And they give us, Supreme Court gives us half on it. But I do have several. In fact, I've been told, I haven't got to talk to anybody at the Supreme Court, that when they load Microsoft 11, I have 3 printers that will not be compatible with that. So I am going to have to do that. I put in the budget for a new queue for next year. And that was something that the Supreme Court put in. It's my backup system.
Oh, thank you.
They put that in 2017. It's been going bad. The last time we had a storm and it went out, it took 4 days to get back online with it. They're like, can we replace it now? I said, no, I don't have it in my budget. No, can't do it. I'll put it in my FY26 budget. And they told me the other day that maybe I'll get one for free. So that might, that would save us $4,800.
Great.
And then I do have one deputy that is pregnant. We're all excited for her, but I may need a part-time person depending on how long she's going to be out. We'll try to do our best we can with what we've got, but I'm looking that if she's out a good 3 months, I'm going to need somebody. But I don't think I think everything else is pretty much the same.
Your budget stayed pretty flat, increase of only 2,000 for both.
Oh, that's crazy.
We know that we're using taxpayer dollars. And I tell the girls all the time, if you can save us some money, let's try it. We've gotten to where we email every single order now, where we used to certify them and mail them. But we're seeing if the attorneys will accept it by email, that's what we're doing.
No, it's real obvious. And holding out may get you new equipment.
I
We don't
beg.
get that one very much. Anybody have questions, Ms. Lau? Anybody? Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Yes, ma'am. This has been productive.
And just to reiterate, all of the budgets will include this 1.5% one-time bonus. That's already embedded for those constitutional offices.
Plus the 3% COLA. And so Jennifer has it broken down for each department that comes before you that's constitutional, but in the revenues, that will be reflected as well.
Yeah, the revenue projections that were presented, all of these little boxes that you see on the screen now, that total number of 274 is sitting in revenues for shared clerk's office. So if you go to the revenue and you see shared sheriff, shared clerk's office, those are reimbursements that we get, and that's the amount for those departments.
Ms. Warren, quick question. The 1.5% bonus, that is going to be, is that completely funded by the state?
They have put in, yes, not completely, well, anybody who is a constitutional officer or reimbursable position, they've put those funds into the budget.
Okay.
But there were, I guess this is a good time to say, there was a couple part-timers in those departments that didn't fall. And instead of leaving those part-time people out, we put a small bonus for them as well, so that each of these constitutional offices, all of their people, even though the comp board doesn't necessarily reimburse for a specific position, we put that in there just to leave, just not, so no one's left out in that constitutional office.
Now following up, the school budget, the 1.5% bonus, is that all covered by the state, or are we gonna have to cover some of that?
My understanding that the state covers their bonuses completely. There is no local match.
But that won't cover everybody in the school.
That's right. That's the way I understand it. But what they can do is, if they have to drop down to 1% to give them all a bonus, they have the option to do that.
Okay. Yeah, and that's how Anna, I believe, presented it, is that they would break that number down to cover everybody.
Yeah.
So that is something for the board to consider. I mean, although we've embedded the 1.5% for each employee in these constitutional offices, and there are some that aren't reimbursed, that is something to consider where we could, if the board decided not to, we would have to do the 1.5% for sure. If we were to take that revenue in, the way the comp board's set up, you can't get reimbursed for that 1.5% unless you pay it out. So we would just have to make sure we do that.
Do we know what the costs are for those part-timers or people that aren't?
I do. For example, one of the part-timers calculated at like $240.
I know.
It doesn't work.
I want to say there was probably 6 total in all the constitutional offices.
Yeah, I'm thinking it'll be nominal.
Yeah.
So, like treasurer's office, all of her folks are comp board. I think, no, she's actually in there now too, yes. I think Lita's office, she might have one that's not. And then commissioner's office, there's like one part-timer. No, not at all. Well, we didn't want to leave anybody out.
It's the same position as you put in with what the state says on COLAs or bonuses or the school side, SOQs. It's great, but that doesn't reflect, so you have an SOQ teacher, a non-SOQ teacher, they're both teachers. Deputy, the same way, you have a constitutional deputy, one that's not funded through the comp board, do you leave them out? So it puts you in a position where we apply, unlike the COLA that is in everybody's, that 1.5, I think the only department that it touched that is county, but it has 5 constitutional officers in there, is the 911 center.
Well, The sheriff's department's probably the biggest one where there are folks that are not reimbursed. Those, well, and they're not certain full-time positions that the state's not gonna reimburse for that 1.5%. So that would probably be the only department where I would say that bonus is across the board for all in that department, but probably maybe 60% is reimbursed of that. I could give you that figure if you want. I could calculate it.
If you
but-
would like to try a really fun exercise, just give it to the people the state
Right.
awards it to, and don't give it to everybody else. It goes very well. It's a good system we've
Yeah,
got
you
set
should
up.
change
I'll add
vehicles
more seats
often.
outside.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's a trap from the state of
It
Virginia.
is.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. All right, what else you got?
Mr. Chairman, we do not have anything else prepared for today.
It's been better.
All right, let me ask a question. From the numbers you threw out at the end of last session, we were looking at, possible deficit or whatever. Like a lot of these, the stuff from IT and some of these other capital improvement things we saw, was that already in those
So
those numbers, or should I
the
go have a
opening
heart
balance
attack?
appropriation number you're talking about,
Yeah, yeah.
that did not include capital. No. So that was strictly operations
Yeah,
fund, the general fund. I did validate that Parks and Rec was 416,488, so I'm gonna update that now. That's the only one that needs to get updated. Oops, wrong one.
So
They're on
last,
the outside agencies, yes.
last year, the way you went through, made some of your decisions, like, I think the easiest one, you just went through this sheet of outside agencies and told us what you thought. The administration team has started to put together some revisions. Those haven't came before you yet, because quite frankly, we'd like for you to hear what they requested up front, and those may not match our revisions, so we would change those naturally. So I think that's gonna lead us into like that April 3rd discussion period. But at some point, we need to set aside time for you all to talk about reduction.
What do you, at the next meeting, what do you have on the start of the agenda?
Hold on one second, I'll go right
We'll
there.
set the mood for the meeting with going through this and really running them down.
So next meeting,
Has anybody checked with the state of Virginia on the library?
meaning what the
If the
funding.
10K is the number that we are supposed to give them?
The extra.
Yes. Whatever the equation is, we should give them what the state requires.
Right.
I mean, good lord.
Okay. Next meeting, you just have presentation of FY '26 budget requests, so.
All right.
Most of those are departments. It runs, right now, looks like the schedule's from 3:05 to 5:05.
Do you want to do this at the beginning or the end? It'll set a different tone if we do it at the beginning. Let's do it at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll run through, we'll go through all the outside agencies. We can kind of thumbs up, thumbs down on what direction to point Jonathan, Ms. Warren, and Brian, then we can go from there.
And I'll have an updated version for sure.
Thank you. That work?
That works.
Good. Anything else, folks?
Last year, you sent us a list of what we are legally obligated on the outside agencies. Can you resend that to me,
Okay.
Sure.
on which ones we're obligated to?
Is it legally obligated and contractually obligated? Because, I mean, like, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think we had a visitor who asked for it to be.
I'm too old for that air conditioner to go down. I'm sorry.
Anybody else? All right. Two public comments. Public comment. How many people watched us today?
Everybody's
Zero
on
people.
YouTube.
Excellent. Well, that's surprising. All right, no public comment. What would y'all like to do? Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you all.